on, kids, come over to the computer, come over to the screen, because Lab Rats is on. My name's Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
And today on the show, see, new opening.
I thought for a second you were going to say, my name is Uncle Creepy.
Anyway, this is Lab Rats. This is a place where we demystify technology and explain all those weird things that the geeks say. And today on the show, we're going to be demystifying a special geek word called domain.
Domain, and not as in the master of.
No, not a Seinfeld reference. No, it's a domain. Domain. It's just web addresses, right? Web addresses. How do you get those web addresses? How do they work? Well, what happens when you connect it to a website? What happens when you just want an email address? Mm-hmm. So it's the world of domains today on Lab Rats. So we're going to kind of take you through it, demystify it like we always do.
Yes.
You ready? Are you excited?
Ready. I'm ready and I'm excited.
Okay, good. All right, so stay tuned. We'll be back after this. So welcome back to Lab Rats. So before we get started with the show, we should kind of clear a couple things up here. That, you know, we work for a company called Two Cows. Two Cows owns Butterscotch.com, and they acquired Lab Rats and that sort of thing. So we work for a company that sells domains. So it kind of puts us in a funny place because, of course, you know, we want you to learn about domains, but our parent company really that's their business. So we want to be very straight about this and let you guys know that, you know, editorially, we just want to educate you here. So we're going to fill you in on how all this stuff works. At the end, we'll talk about Hover.com, of course. That's part of what our parent does. And we're going to give you a deal on how to buy your own domain. We just want to be straight out about that, though, before we get started.
This is what you call a disclaimer.
It is a disclaimer.
Yes, so. The information that we're going to give you will extend to all of these domains, even ones that you can buy from other companies, not just ours, but we do it.
Yes. Okay, good. So let's get started. So a domain, Sean, I mean, that's really it's a catch-all word, isn't it, for a web address. And in fact, not even a web address, but a kind of the key part of the address that directs the name to, you know, the name of part of the web address.
Right, and there's two parts to a domain, and generally you'll see, now there's been like, in a web address, there's been like www.something.whatever. And the www, it's sort of incidental to what we're doing for the purpose
of
actually,
the www, that part of it is, you know, kind of describes the computer or the server that you're going to be connecting to. So it's not integral to the registration of the domain.
Right. So let's just take, for example, butterscotch.com, since that's us.
Yeah.
So there's two parts of that, butterscotch and .com.
Yeah.
Now the .com, there's a lot of .coms out there. That's what you call a top-level domain.
Yeah.
And so you've got things like .com, .edu for educational facilities, .ca if you're Canadian, .us if you're in the US, you got .tv if you're on TV or if you're a resident of the country of Tuvalu.
Yeah. Or if you use, you know, a lot of like video on your site and that sort of thing.
You use video on your site. There's other ones like .me, .co, .co.uk. So there's a whole pile of top-level domains that are out there. Right. Now what we have is a subdomain. So Butterscotch is part of the .com domain, but that's telling us what our domain is.
Which .com you should go to.
Right.
And so, .com was originally kind of it's the commercial. It's COM is commercial, right? It's designed for companies, really, but just because it's become the default kind of top-level domain for the internet.
Yeah, and that's starting to open up and fragmentize into different kinds of industries that you'll see out there these days. But yeah, for the longest time, it was all just .com and .edu and .mil, I believe, for the military, which is where this whole shebang got started.
.gov as well.
And .gov.
For the U.S. government specifically. Yes. Good. Okay, good. All right, so that's sort of the breakdown of what a domain is. And so let's start talking about different uses for a domain. I think that's probably a worthy place to, because it's not just about website addresses. I mean, that would be the kind of #1 thing you would use it for.
Yeah, so if you want to start your own blog or you have a business that you want to start or something like that, and you might want to get a page. So like butterscotch.com, we started that because we wanted to teach people about technology, and this was the name that we decided that we wanted to use for this.
Right. But you can actually own a domain and not have a website. Some people want a personalized email address. Right. So, you know, you could register, like I registered technologytips.com. I don't use it for a specific website. I point it to a particular website, but it's not a website unto itself. And I use andy@technologytips.com as one of my email addresses I use for the various things that I do on the internet.
Right, and you can choose not to even point it to something. You can just leave that completely blank so that when you go there, nothing happens, but you can actually still use the domain for your mail. So, for example, I just got SeanCarruthers.me. Maybe I don't want a website there. I can just have it as strictly for mail purposes. That is my personal vanity domain that allows my mail to come into me.
Right. I guess the other thing is that pointers.
Yes.
So you use a domain as a pointer. Now, a pointer really is, it's like kind of a shortcut And in fact, our friends at Hover.com, they have a service where once you register a domain, you can go out and you can put, you can create shortcuts for the longer domain. So let's say there is a book on Amazon that has, one of those long URLs, right? I could go on to the service at Hover.com, go to andywalker.me, create a shortcut that's andywalker.me/book, and point that at that long domain. So I don't have to type that in all the time, and it's a good way to remember the longer things you want to remember consistently.
Right. So we've got, I've got, say, the domains here on my Hover control panel. So let's just say I go to seanc.ca. Now we've got something called Manage Forwards in this case, which will allow you to create little shortcuts, like you said, or forward the entire domain if you choose. So, and this is one thing that you might want to do with your domain as well. So right now I've got my homepage to display my hovers. These are the little shortcuts. But if I want to forward to another website, and this is something you can do again with any service that's out there, you can forward this domain to any other thing. So you'd click to forward to another website or the suitable alternative inside your own, the company that you're buying this from. Oftentimes it's a C name redirect, or you'd use an A name redirect. It's a little bit more technical than it is here. But then you type in the name of the site that you're going to. So I want to forward this to labrats.tv. Hit save. Now if someone goes to seanc.ca, it'll re-forward straight to Labrats.
Good. Okay. So you can use the domain as a kind of a pointer for a website or for multiple websites if you have that forwarding feature with your domain host.
Right.
Very good. Or domain registrar, I guess would be the correct term.
Yes.
Good. All right. And then some people simply use domains as an investment. Let's say that you have got your hands on like for example, I know in our portfolio at Tucows we have Tool.com. We just acquired that through an acquisition over the years. Well, Tool.com is a very handy, high-value name. And our friend Bill Sweetman over at YummyNames.com is one of the divisions at Tucows, and he has all these sort of vanity names, and the company actually sells them to companies that want specific domains that are kind of easy to remember and that sort of thing.
Right, and you don't have to be a company like us to do that. If you just think of a great name that will be very handy down the road to someone, even if you're not going to use it, you can always register it for the yearly fee, and that will vary depending on what type of domain you're registering. Right. Then you can just hold on to it, and someone will come knocking and say, "Excuse me, I would like to buy this domain from you." Yeah. And you can say, $5 million, or maybe less.
Yeah. I did that actually years ago with cyberwalker.com. So I originally got cyberwalker.net for my website, and .com was being held by a guy in California, and I approached him a couple years later, and he said, "No, I want $5,000 bucks," and I'm like, "Okay, don't have that kind of money." A few years later, he came back to me and said, "Listen, I'm just kind of selling off all the domains," and I bought it for, I think it was $500 or something like that. So still, much more than the $10 or $20 that it costs you today, but still, if it has value, it's a worthwhile investment.
Yeah, and one note is if you buy one of these domains off of someone for like an inflated price like $500 or $5,000, you're just paying for the rights to have that domain. Going forward, after that point, you only pay the regular yearly update fee for it, not $5,000.
It's like a one-time acquisition fee for you to kind of get the rights to it, exactly.
Right, and I think that's one important thing to talk about when we're talking about getting these domains. So you've registered andywalker.me, and I've registered SeanCarruthers.me, Matt's registered mattharris.me. We're renting these things from the world registrars out there, the service that controls these things. Yeah. We can get them for 1 year or up to 10 years, but they don't belong to us. They're not things that we can do anything we want forever.
You're acquiring the exclusive rights on an annual basis from actually, in fact, in the case of .com, it would be VeriSign would be the company that looks after all the .coms. And there are various different companies in the world that were responsible for the top-level domains.
Right. Yeah, so you're making a deal with them to lease that name for a period of time.
Right, without having anybody else be able to take it out from underneath you.
Right.
Right. Now, one thing I should probably mention around this, too, is that there are some people that actually have big investment portfolios. They carry thousands of names, and they actually make a living off of, or makes income at least off of that investment. They buy them and sell them and that sort of thing. So, so it is it's part of the business of the internet, I guess. Right.
Yes, and those people, they always get the ones that I want.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so let's talk about where to buy them.
All right.
Right. So, so the many places you can, on the internet, you can go and buy your domains. There's probably four or five large companies that do this, and Tucows is one of them, and Tucows does it through Hover.com. You can also buy it from your internet service provider. So if you get a website, these websites will all, when you register for their website, you will also be able to buy a domain from them, and they will sell you that. Now, interestingly enough, Tucows in behind the scenes actually does a lot of that management for them. It's invisible.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no shortage of places to buy domains at the moment.
No. Yeah, so you, essentially when you want to find a name, you would go to one of these places. In this case, we're going to go to Hover and look for a domain, something that we want to get, and let's say labrats.com, and then we'll do a search onto this, and we have a drop-down tab here, and again, you'll have maybe check boxes on the domain registrar you go to, and it'll allow you to search through different types, looking for the very specific ones. So you see we've got probably about 20 different choices here: .org, .tv, .info, .us, .biz, .tel. So then you choose the one that you want to get, and you say .co, and we're going to do a search. And it'll look through, whether they're available or not. This will be not just our registrar, but all of the ones in the world. It says, hey, it's available, so we can buy it, and we can actually buy mailboxes here as well. And your registrar may give you the choice to actually buy mail through them as well.
Right.
And that will allow you, if you want the domain and a mailbox, but you don't want to set up a site, this might be the way to do it. Mm-hmm. Then you add it to your cart, and away you go.
Very good. Okay, good. All right, one of the things, sites I did want to mention, if you were curious about who owns what, and you want to find out, for example, if something's bought or somebody's held, like they've bought it and you can't get your hands on it, and find out who it is. There's a service called smartwhois.com. Check that out, because it'll actually look up who owns which domain and give you information on that person. It's a good way to track somebody down if you are interested in buying something that somebody else owns, and make an offer and find out who you have to make the offer to. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the things you can do with the domain, because I think that's worthwhile. I think you mentioned one earlier. You can do pointing, mm-hmm. right? So you can take a domain, you can point it at another domain. So, for example, today cyberwalker.net points to cyberwalker.com. You can take the actual domain and make it part of a website, and that requires some work with what's called a DNS server, mm-hmm. right? So typically, you want to get from your web hosting company what they call the name server information. I did it the other day with Hover. It was ns1.hover.com, ns2.hover.com. You put that into your the DNS area of your domain registrar to tell it where to affiliate it to. And that will allow the web address, the domain, to be attached to a web hosting account.
Right, so we have that here on my particular account. The name server is ns1.hover.com, ns2.hover.com, and then we can actually manage the DNS as well. So that will allow us to point to different things, as we talked about. So we can create subdomains on this. So if we want one subdomain like sean.seanc.ca to point to labrats, and we can have other.seanc.ca point to butterscotch, that sort of thing, and right. That will all create them in this control panel. It's a little bit intimidating looking here, and a lot of it you don't really have to worry about unless you're getting into the more advanced sort of things of domain redirection.
Right. And then in terms of, there's one other feature I quite like on this service. It's called Stealth. Why don't you explain that?
So the whole idea of stealth redirection will actually go back here to the manage forward. So we just redirected it a few minutes ago, this one to labrats.tv, and you'll notice up top here we've got something called Enable Stealth Redirection. So now typically when you redirect a web page from one page to another, and it's just a straight out redirect, when I type in seanc.ca, it'll go to labrats.tv, and in the bar up top, it'll change from seanc.ca to labrats.tv, and yeah. You'll notice I'm now on a new site.
Yeah.
Now if you want to make it look like you're still on the same site, enable stealth redirection, and then when you click through, it'll actually read the name of the URL that you typed in initially rather than the one that you're being redirected to.
Yeah.
So it's stealthily, it looks like you're on that site rather than a different site.
So even though technologytips.com isn't an actual website, I could actually point it at cyberwalker.com, mm-hmm. and then when I arrive at cyberwalker.com, it doesn't change the location bar. It just stays as technologytips.com. And right. It looks like I stay in that name. So it's a good way to sort of take multiple domains and affiliate with one website, for example, if you didn't want different names or different pointers and that sort of thing.
Right.
That's very good. Okay, good. All right. Do you want to talk about propagation real quick?
Yeah, propagation. So the one thing I think that a lot of people don't realize when they buy a domain is that this is not an instant process. So you can buy the domain and you own it instantly once it goes through and your credit card clears and all that. But you point it to another domain, it won't necessarily automatically be detectable to me. So you might say to you across the room, okay, check this out. If you're at the same registrar as I am, then of course it might say, okay, there we go, bang, and then you're redirected. However, what needs to be done for all of these changes to be made, I mean, it's not immediately apparent to someone on the other side of the planet what this domain that I've just registered is, because how would they know? Mm-hmm. So what happens is I register it at hover.com. Hover talks to a bunch of other local people and says, hey, let everybody know. This domain now goes here. So I'll say to you, hey, Andy, let everyone know that seanc.ca goes to this thing. Tell Matt. And then you'll tell Matt, and then Matt will tell someone else, and then it'll propagate around the world and just keep getting wider and wider until everybody knows. And this is a process that can take a day or two.
It's a DNS service, or domain name service, or domain name servers. And it's just basically, it's almost like a Yellow Pages.
Yes.
Right? So all these computers sit around the world and go, oh, what does that mean? Oh, it means the web hosting over here. So it's kind of almost like a directory lookup almost.
Yeah, so before it propagates, between the time when I register it and you get it, is essentially you're using the old directory at the other end. You have to wait for someone to drop off the new Yellow Pages.
Right.
Here's all the new information.
There you go. Very
But
good.
this is all done digitally, and it's a whole lot quicker than it used to be. You don't have to print it.
Yeah, it usually takes less than 24 hours, and usually only hours, I find.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's take a break. When we come back, we've got clip of the week as well as picture time. Welcome back to Lab Rats. So let's have a look at the clip of the week. This week, Mr. Jay Goldman, I believe.
Yes, sir.
He's doing a show called Status Update, something you produce.
Yes.
And what are we looking at?
Well, he's doing something new basically around the world of social media with Status Update now. And this one, he's actually talking about how to get started with blogging. So we talked about one reason you might want to have a domain. And he's giving us a few options on how to get started in that.
Very good. OK, well, let's take a look.
Welcome on deck. I'm Matt Harris.
Hi, I'm Jay Goldman.
Welcome to the A-List.
Hi, welcome to Miss Download.
They're also really, really good for search engine optimization. So if you have a website that you're trying to promote, it could be something that you're doing personally as a personal project. It could also be the company that you work for, a brand that you're trying to promote. Having a blog on it is fantastic for search engine optimization because it provides tons of fresh content on a regular basis that Google will come back and index. And it also provides lots of opportunity to talk about the keywords that you are trying to optimize your search engine for. So I would definitely advocate that people go out there and do blogs if they're trying to attract an audience or build an audience or generate traffic to their website.
Well, if you want to see that whole fabulous show with Jay Goldman, go check it out at butterscotch.com. I think, how many episodes so far?
We've got a couple. We've got at least a dozen out, and we've got a couple more in the can.
New one every week.
By the time you see this, it'll just be a zillion.
There'll be zillions. All right, so zip on over butterscotch.com. Check that out. All right. Time for picture time. Was it video time or is it pet time or what is it?
It's picture time today.
Picture time.
So we've got.
Is there a pet in it?
No.
Is there a small furry child in it?
No.
Oh, okay. Is there somebody?
That's just weird, man.
Somebody's website?
No.
Ugh, okay.
Want me to just show you?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got a picture from our friend Steve in Marysville, Washington.
Wow.
And he's showing us his setup here.
That's
got
something
a whole
else.
pile of stuff going on. So we've got
1, 2, 3. I see 3 screens with Lab Rats on it.
3 screens. There's probably a few more hidden and a lot of gear there. So.
Wow.
That's way too much Andy for my liking.
Come on. See, they're even wearing the same shirt. I love it. It's very good.
Do you ever change?
I do. Every show I change.
Yeah,
All right. Well, if you want to send your pictures into Lab Rats, you can email them to.
Propagate this at labrats.tv.
I don't know if they can spell propagate, Sean. How about something simpler?
Propagate that? No. How about feedback at labrats.tv?
Feedback.
That's the usual one. That gets it there.
That gets it there. Okay, good. All right. Well,
Besides, I don't think propagate this is propagated yet. So.
any final words?
Wasn't that enough?
Yes, pretty much. All right, so we promised you a coupon at the end of the show. Well, it's the end of the show now. Zip on over to hover.com if you're interested in getting your own domain or your own forwarding domain or an own email address or whatever it is about domains that you want. Hover.com is the place to go. 10% off with this coupon right here. You're going to love it. We love it. Matt even bought one for his mom the other week.
I'm the best son ever.
You are the best son ever. So go and buy your mom a domain, even if you don't want one for yourself.
The only thing is now his mom has to figure out what kind of blog she wants to write.
I know. It's like, why my son's the worst kid in the world. I think it's probably that's the blog. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming to us this week, pushing play. Thanks for watching us. Thanks for putting up with him and his purple shirt. It'd be foolish for us to be here talking about domains if you weren't out there scratching your heads wondering about them. My name is Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
We'll see you next time.
Are you ready?
Disclaimer.